This video introduces a number of concepts in Swift programming. Swift Demo 1. This demo is great for both absolute beginners as well as those who already know how to program in a language other than Swift. It introduces you to all the basic concepts as listed above: source control, constant, variable, string interpolation, console, function, playground, and range operators. To get started, we will use both Xcode Procedure 1 to start a new app and Xcode Procedure 4 to label its first screen. These procedures 1 and 4 are already recorded in two different videos earlier. Now I'm going to do procedure 1 and 4 quickly to run Xcode to start a new app and label its first screen. Close the old project, run again, start a new app, iOS application, single view, next. Blank app 1C is the product name, language Swift, device is iPhone, do not use core data, next. This is where I want to store my project files. This time I'm going to use source control so that I can ignore recent changes. Create. Now the program 1C has been created, and initially I want to commit to back up everything that initially generated. I cannot commit I'm going to check everything and commit 5 files. So now when I click on main storyboard, I can see my document outline, my canvas. I need to maximize Xcode and utilities panel. Okay. The main storyboard is where I design my user interface. I want to bring up the object library panel here and drag a label to my canvas, change that to Swift Demo 1. Okay. So now everything I've done so far has been documented under Xcode Procedure 1 and Xcode Procedure 4. Now I want to back up this version. Xcode Procedure 1 and 4. Now I want to demo source control. So let's bring in another label, one more, and this time I decided that I don't care for what I've just done. Move the cursor to the top of my screen, click on source control, and select discard all changes. And as soon as I confirm that, you can see the new labels have been discarded, but the committed label stays. That's the launch screen. This is the main interface. Go back here. Now we want to make the launch screen no longer in use by clicking on the first item in the navigator panel. Select the main target. We can use this button right here to collapse this panel. General has been selected by default. We don't want to use the other tabs. Just click on General, and under General, skipping this, skipping that, and under App Icons and Launch Images, we don't want to use the launch screen. We just want to go use the main storyboard. Now let's run it and see. The launch screen is no longer in use. Go back. Behind this screen, there is logic, and the logic is expressed as source code in this file. This will be explained to you later in another video, but for right now, you only need to know that at this location, (101), that's how you place a comment in the code, put in / in front. At this location, whatever you enter here will be executed after the first screen is loaded. One way to find out is to use the command print line. First screen loaded. and now run it. I see the first screen. Go back to Xcode, look at the bottom. This is the debug areas right here. I can hide the debug areas, or I can show the debug areas. I can use this button to hide or show also. And I have a trace slice letting me know that this line was executed after the first screen was loaded. I can do another print line. Here is another print line, and then run again. I have a second trace of what's happening in my code here. This sequence of statements can be moved to somewhere else and placed in a block of code that's called function. So outside of the existing code at the bottom, at the very bottom, I append a function and I say do task 1, like that. I use the curly bracket to start the body and another curly bracket to close the body. So now I move these statements here, and then I call that function by name in this way, and it should work the same way. Let's see. Same thing here. You may say that these might have been there already. Well, in that case, let me print another line here. Line 3. Added. Now let's see. Go back. As you can see, do task 1 is a function that was executed, and that's why you see the trace lies in the debug areas. Now let's create a new source file, new Swift file. Source Swift, and call it code areas 1, and then go back here and move this function out of this file and put it in code areas 1, and change this a little bit. The function has been executed. The function is called here, but it's defined elsewhere in another file. So let's run it and see. It works. In general, a function can be anywhere. In any file within the project. Now let's create another type of file. Let's call that use playground and call this code areas. Two. Code areas 1 is Swift source file. Code areas 2 is playground source file. What happens when I move my function to the playground and run it? I have a compilation error right here. It says use of unresolved identifier do task 1. As you can see, what is presented in a playground area will not be included in the final product. To use it, I need to move this back into the Swift code areas and not the playground area. In the playground, I can put in some inconsequential comments. Let's copy this in here, and these are the concepts that I need to present in this demo. Now I need to show that some have been introduced already. And these have not been introduced yet. This areas, the debug areas, by the way, is called the console. In other programming language. In Xcode, it's called debug areas. Activate console. It's also called console. Okay. So now let's go back to the function. And now inside this function, I want to declare a variable, and it's called a, and it's an integer, and I initialize it to be 1. Another variable, b, integer equals 2, and I can set let c be a constant equals a plus b, and now I want to say c equals 23 plus c, and I have a compilation error because the let keyword says that it's a constant, and therefore I cannot change it. Now let's move this down. I want to print the value c, so the value in the constant c now has this value. Now if I want to insert value c, I use a trick that's called string interpolation, using backslash, open close parentheses, and now I put in an expression, make it c. That's the syntax I use to interpolate this string so that I can insert values of an expression within that string. Let's run it and see. That's the result. Go back to my playground. That's string interpolation. Okay, constant and variable. Done. Range operators. Go back to the code. There are two different types of range operators. Close range operator and half open range operator. This operator is used as part of a loop, so I can say for my index in one close range operator 5. I can say print my index is then go down here. I say from 6 to 10. Let's make this my index 1, my index 2. So we're not confused. Now let's run it and see what happens. As you can see, in the first loop, oh, this should be 1, this should be 2. Try again. As you can see in the first loop, the last values 5 is included. But in the second loop, the last value 10 is not included. That's the difference between closed range operator and half open range operator. That's it. These concepts have been presented. And we are done with this demo.